coins to prove that they had not been tampered with. Even in this country, many farming banks and small business would never give change for a silver dollar without dropping the dollar on a piece of marble set into the front of the cash register to hear it ring, to make sure that it was genuine. So counterfeiting came in. And counterfeiting, however, was of no value and of no profit unless there was a genuine article. The counterfeit had to be based upon a value. And counterfeiting goes on, and in papers a few days ago, a counterfeiting ring was broken up. Thus money began to get on all kinds of nasty appearances, not because it had anything to do with the bill or the silver, but because of those evil ones who lay in wait for it. Someone asked Plato once why gold was such a pale metal. He answered, because it fears those who seek to possess it. The paleness is terror. Actually, the gradual development of the situation resulted in the rise of a great theory of money. This theory of money became the basis, practically, of human society. And within the last 50 years, the mistake has become obvious. We are finding ourselves captured in an economic problem which no one as yet seems to be able to solve. The problem of considering a medium of exchange as a capital gain in itself. Materialism, of course, has always nourished the concept of wealth. Now, wealth thoroughly and basically is considered in ancient times as a process in merit. Wealth was the individual reward for individual industry. Wealth was necessary to a measure, and it is still necessary to a measure. But wealth was actually an inducement to produce. It was an incentive to excel in some field of activity. This excellence might be in the making of a violin or in the development of some useful commodity. Actually, wealth in ancient times was closely associated with art and very closely associated with religion. It was a symbol of value, and this value was assumed to be a product of individual integrity. The individual was proving his ability through his own productivity. This productivity separated him from the indolent. The indolent person, the individual who had no concern for value, who wished to live without work, or wished to get by with as little labor and as large a profit as possible, must inevitably corrupt a system. He is not fulfilling his responsibility. Another rule of ancient Egyptian finance was that in the other life, the individual had to prove merit. He had to prove that his life had been in some way a contribution to public good. He had to have done something that was of service to others rather than himself. He had to have so lived that the world was a little bit better for the fact that he had lived. If his actions were such that the world was a little bit worse because he had lived, then he could not pass the final judgment. Today we are in a very complicated situation economically, and all the legislation in the world probably cannot solve it. It has to go back to where all responsibility in human affairs rests, and that is with the human being. The highest form of wealth, as Egypt pointed out, was integrity. This was the one commodity. Integrity involved both honesty and intelligence. The individual who is unhonest is making one serious mistake, and another person who is unintelligent in the use of what he has is making another mistake. His non-intelligence is contributing to the delinquency of other people. All of the principles involved are simple. The difficulty is to find an instrumentation for them. We have to find some method in this world by which principles are given an opportunity to guide human conduct. As time went on and goes on today, there has also been a great change in the attitudes of people toward life. Even in our younger days, life was a comparatively well-ordered existence. The individual belonged to a group. He might be a member of a guild. He might be a member of a trade union. He could well be a small shopkeeper or a small town physician. But he had his niche. He had his place where he worked, in the sense that he made his contribution to society. He lived within his means. It never occurred to him to live otherwise. And in spite of the fact that he might be surrounded by persons who had more than he had, this did not seriously discomfort him, because he did not regard wealth as a symbol of superiority. He knew enough from personal experience or observation to realize the miseries of the rich. He realized that they were not enjoying what they had. Instead of enjoying it, they were servants to it. And Buddha points this out very, very clearly. Namely, that those who do not have much live miserably because they do not have more. That those who have much live in misery for fear that it shall be taken from them. And everyone shares a certain common anxiety. This was quite according to natural law and procedure. Now, when we come into the financial situation as it is, we realize that we have lost something. We have lost leadership. We have lost the guidance of the authority of principles. One of the principal factors in this situation has been materialism. Materialism has focused the mind entirely upon this small span of time which we call a lifetime. Materialism has made it mandatory that success be achieved here, and that success here is the ultimate purpose of existence. In order to make this really stick, in order to be able to sell the idea on all levels of society, materialism must in some way interfere with the cultural morality of antiquity. The materialist must not look forward to any life beyond this one. He must realize that it is his privilege, as one of the Roman emperors is supposed to have said, to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we shall die. Even the Romans were a little smarter, however, because whenever they had a great feast, they reserved one seat at the head of the table and placed a skeleton in it, to remind all there that life was fleeting and that the inevitable was always close at hand. But in this problem, the concept of accumulation built around a materialistic attitude of life made it very valuable to some people to think in terms of material possessions. These material possessions might be a piece of land, a building, valuable personal properties. Whatever it was important. Yet we have no record up to the present time that any materialistic substance or possession can have a continuous effect upon consciousness. It must be left behind. Why then should we become so desperately dedicated to accumulations which at best are only loaned to us. We own nothing. We only own our own souls, and that we do not generally find sufficiently important to try to raise money on them. The materialistic position can only result ultimately in an overestimation of false values. If we are not aware of true values, then we substitute values that are not true and satisfy ourselves by the immediate accumulation of things rather than to contemplate the ultimate consequence. Now, this world is a very interesting place, and it has a great many dimensions that are worth a lot of thought. The human being can have a very interesting life, and also a life that is very profitable in terms of things he can take with him. Among the things that he can take with him, according to the Egyptians, are the attributes of his own soul. His soul power is his universal medium of exchange. It goes beyond anything that belongs to this world. Now, the power or treasuries or wealth of the soul are friendship, love, thoughtfulness, dedication, the improvement of the mind and heart, the accumulation of wisdom, and the practice of charity. These are soul values, and when the Egyptian jurors weighed the soul of the dead, these are the things that they estimated. What has the individual done that makes it proper for him to expect a better future? That he will go on to be what he was intended to be. Now, when we get started on the problem of our material existence and begin to estimate how much we can do with this small ball floating in space that we call the Earth, we kind of take on the attitude that in some way or other, this little ball is going to sustain our concept of wealth. We want to investigate this little ball very carefully, but we do not investigate it to find out what it means in a cosmic plan of things. We measure it in order to determine how many mortgages we can put on it. It becomes a problem of using the Earth as collateral. And as a collateral, we are getting into some trouble. We like to think, perhaps, of this planet as like a bottle, an alchemical retort, a round, transparent bottle. And in this bottle are all kinds of hidden treasures. Everything under the surface of the Earth is filled with all kinds of potential sources of good. Even the moisture that causes the plant to break through the surface is part of the evidence of an eternal life in the Earth. But if, for instance, instead of nurturing this, working with it, struggling to preserve and protect it, using the Earth with a sense of responsibility to the creating power, if instead of this all we do is exploit the Earth, there is a compensation which we do not like. For instance, we are going to be faced more and more with a petroleum problem. And we are going to fight and struggle and buy and sell and trade and swap and steal to control the available fuel resources. And we are going to fight and struggle and buy and sell and trade and swap and steal to control the available fuel resources. We forget this Earth is a bottle and that it only has so much in it. And when what is in it is gone, it is gone. And it takes millions of years to replenish an exhausted petroleum field. Therefore, this whole situation is fraught with the greatest danger. And this danger is summed up in the concept of profit. We are willing to sell our birthright for a bowl of potash, in this case, a bowl of petroleum. But we are using our means for the wrong ends. What we should be doing is trying to understand the world we live in, trying to know what the world rewards and what it punishes, and learn to know how to use and not abuse what we have. In Rome, an old farmer once dug up a pot of gold in his field when he was plowing.